All right, this is the next tutorial in modular kit building. Previously, we had gone through and cleaned up our arch for use inside a game engine, and then we cannibalized it to make a door frame. I'm going to go ahead and expose my Scene Explorer again. Here it is. And let's just get our wall in here. All right, so here's my wall, right? And you'll notice that the floor goes down a little bit, right? Because I mentioned we had to have floor thickness, right? Our floor ceiling has that thickness, which means if I had a floor up above this, let's right click, clone as an instance. So I'm just going to raise this up. Our floor, if we had a second floor above this, would not sit at 400. Our floor, 400, our floor would sit at 440 at the 20 units, right? And so basically we're going to have this big ugly gap if we don't have another wall there. So what we need to do is build trim. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to use our door frame to make that. So I'm going to right click and clone the door frame as a copy. I'll call bn underscore edge and hit OK. And I'm going to hide the door frame. So now I just have my edge piece. And I can get rid of this clone, and I can hide my floor, ceiling, and my wall. Oops. So just make sure I accidentally moved it there, make sure it's zeroed out. Let's go into element, and we're going to get rid of everything but this upper part. Go back up to the top level, put an FFD 2x2 on, open that up, expose the control points, grab those, and then give them a Z value of 0. All right. Let's come up here and restore our viewport. And what we're going to do here, let's turn our grid back on. I'm going to hit G on my keyboard. What I want to do is I'm going to take this bottom row of control points. I'm going to put them at -40. Let's see. If I just grab everything and I drag it down, it'll end up sitting at about, where's this bottom point? Is -60, which is way too much. So I want this top value to be at 1. And I'm going to take everything here and move this up to -40. And then I can grab the rest of this. Let's go ahead and let's put that wall out there so we know how thick the wall is. Let's grab this and bring this over to, let's enter a value of -10. Oops. That needs to be, I'm going to change this to absolute transform, right? So when it's blue, now I can type in values like negative. Well, actually, that's not what I want. I want to turn that off and undo that. And along the y-axis, which y is left right here, I want this to say -10. Oops, I'm in the wrong value. Y is here, -10. And then I'm going to put 10 here. Now let's just region select, grab both those. I'm just going to scale them out. Because basically I just want it to come out just a little bit here, not too far. And that's what I want. This is what my edge is going to look like to start. All right, so top level of that, grab this wall, right click, hide selection. Okay, so here's what we need to do with our edge piece as it is. We need to right click and convert that to poly. Now this is going to go edge to edge, so grab those vertex points and drag them over so they come over here just a little bit. All right, we'll zoom in. All right, now here is what we're going to do. We need to get rid of all of this geometry here, right? Because this is going to be flat, right? We're going to make it all flush. So really we just want to go in and get rid of any of the very flat polygons here. It might help if you were in select. I was in select and move. I just moved to select only. There we go. Let's get rid of the edges up on the top. All right. So this is going to save us some time of UVing. All right. So now I'm going to grab all these vertex points and I'm going to make them planar along X and give them a value of 0 here to move them together like that. All right. Now, what you'll see is you have a bunch of edges and they're not all going to line up with each other, which is fine. What we're going to do is we're going to go back into select. I'm going to grab this polygon here and say, I'm going to hold control and click on edge and then deselect the side edges. Go into connect, go into the connect dialog, and I'm going to slide that over, about like that. I'm going to come over and grab this edge. And be careful you don't grab the tiny edge on the side, but the long edge. Grab that ring, open up connect, do the same thing. I want to slide him over a little bit. And you're going to need to do this in a couple different spots. Ring, connect, move that over. Ring, connect, and even probably be okay if we didn't even do it everywhere. Ring. I don't quite want to do it all the way across there. Just do it right here. Okay. Now, whoops. This gets a little bit tricky to work with. Sometimes you get into what's called a gimbal lock. I'm just going to manually change this to be a front view and then hit P to make it perspective. And then go into orbit, move around, and hit Z to zoom in. All right, let's grab a vertex point. I'm going to move this up a little bit. Move this one down a little bit, this one up a little bit, because what I need to do is I need to kind of be able to see them, because I want to be able to take them and target weld, but not the vertex points. I want to target weld the edges, because target weld edges actually works a lot better than target welding vertex points. It looks like this guy needs to be connected. I'll grab that ring, connect that, and then I'm just going to keep going through. And otherwise, we would have to go through and manually do this, which, you know, maybe that's easier. It's hard to say. There's a lot of different ways to handle this. This may be the sloppiest, who knows. Does tend to work, though. All right. Grab this vertex point, move him down, move him. Oops. Careful you don't double click, that'll grab everything. Target weld this over. Yeah. I find target weld with edges to work better than target weld with vertex points. And this one, I don't even need to do the two. I'm going to hold control and click remove, and that'll get rid of edges and verts. All right, so there we go. So that kind of went through and clean that up. I bet if we grab this vertex point and move this over a little bit. Nope. Looks like we need to target weld him. Let's see if target weld vertex point works. Ah, see, that worked. Move this over. So that kind of cleaned up the UVs. Now, you don't need to do too much to really clean up these UVs. I mean, you could certainly go into Unwrap Uvw, open the UV editor, and then manually click on these various polygons right here. And what I would recommend you do is hit explode, and then tools, relax, and maybe set your iterations to like 5 and just hit apply, and that should do it. All right, and see that already caused me all sorts of trouble. I wouldn't even worry about it. And the reason I'm going to say don't worry about it is because this should, for the most part, be hidden by other geometry. Okay. The one thing you do want to go in here and fix at this point, though, is we had this nice edge up here at the top, but what we did was we actually, when we pulled the verts, we flattened that out. So if we find out where that is, we can take all these points here and just flatten them like this, and that'll resolve that problem there. I'm going to convert to edit poly, grab these vertex points, make sure they're all lined up on X, and that in movement mode on X they sit at 0. And now, because this whole thing is centered, I want to put a symmetry on it along the y-axis. I want to take everything that we just cleaned up and make sure that's mirrored front to back, which I think it is. Oh boy, looks like we got our center line here is not quite centered. So let's just grab those vertex points here, make sure they're all aligned along y, and then make sure they're all sitting at 0, which they are now. Okay. Now we can put a new symmetry on the y-axis, turn off z, flip it, and there you go. So that's doing it. And then let's go ahead, we'll put another symmetry on it, and this one we're going to change to x, and we're going to go into the sub-object and move it halfway along x to the 200 point, so he's halfway through, and then we want to flip him. Right, so now we got our basic edge piece here. All right, which is pretty cool. Now, what we can do at this point, we could, if we want, and sometimes I have people go through and cut off the backside, just make it flat. You could leave it like this to have some mass if you wanted. It's kind of up to you. In this case, I think we're going to just cut off the backside. So let's come in here, grab this backside and hit delete. And now I am going to go into border, click on this. Oh boy, there's a lot of verts aren't welded. Let's go into vertex mode. We have 94 verts. I'm gonna hit weld, and that welded a bunch together. So if I go back into border now, okay, good. It's just this backside. So I'm gonna go into edge, hold control, go to edge. I'm gonna deselect these edges up here at the top, and then hit bridge. And then I'm gonna grab one of these edges, hit ring, and just go into connect, and connect it once. Go into vertex point, grab everything in the middle, and if I hit weld, it should change from this value that I have at 27 down to 25. There we go. Perfect. And then last but not least, we'll go into Unwrap Uvw, open the UV editor. Now in my case, the polygons I just made are selected. If they aren't for you, just select those polygons on the backside and hit project and do the best align. And then we're just going to grab that and just scale it to any kind of quarter on here. It doesn't really matter which one, because again, this is the backside and you probably aren't going to see it. So right click and convert that to poly. All right, there we go. So this is our edge. And let's call this BN edge underscore straight. Now we need to have our corners, because if we were to take this and rotate it, I'm going to hold shift while I do this, and it's going to make a copy. Notice if I have edges sitting like this, that they have what we call Z fighting, right? They're on top of each other. So I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to right click and clone it as a copy and call this edge in. All right, so that's my edge when it's going in. And I'm going to put a symmetry on here, change it to an X, turn off Z, and I'm going to go into the mirror plane, going to rotate with my angle snap on. I'm just going to rotate this 45 degrees. All right, and there you go. There's my edge in, right? And so now it won't be clipping on itself. You got geometry there. Right click, convert that to poly. Oh, and we should really, as we're doing this, I'm going to do unwrap, go into map channel 2. I'm just going to hit abandon. I'm going to open the UV editor. And what I'm going to do now is just, because I'm on map channel 2, I'm going to click in negative space on nothing selected. It said mapping, flatten mapping, okay. And then I'm just going to, it's funny, because it is this giant thing, you have a lot of dead space because it's got these weird angles. If I repack it, no, it's not going to do anything. So let's just grab those extra long edges and hit explode. And pack that again, and that's a little better, and change your padding to 0.05. All right, right click, convert that to poly. All right, and so we'll go back to our straight piece. I'm going to hide the edge in. And while we're at, let's do unwrap, change to map channel 2, abandon, open UV editor, click in negative space, mapping, flatten mapping, okay. padding 0.05, pack normalize, right click, convert that at poly, and right click, clone as. And so we have our edge straight, our edge in, and now we need our edge out. All right, and so what's going to happen here is we need, what happens if I have two edges, oops, 90 degrees. If I have two edges sitting like this, I got this ugly thing. So we got to make this tiny little corner. So that's going to be our edge out. And so for this guy, we're going to come in here and we're going to put another symmetry on, change it to X, and in, make sure it's on 45, go to rotate, and we're going to rotate 45 degrees again. But now we're going to flip it. So now we get this little edge that's going to fill in that tiny little corner for us, which is exactly what we needed. So we'll right click, convert that at poly. We're going to put another unwrap on, change it to map channel 2. I'm going to say abandon because it's the first time we're doing it. And say mapping, flatten mapping, okay. Just to our pack normalize, 0.05. Right click, convert that to poly. All right, that's it. We probably should go into element here and hit auto smooth. Right, do the same thing for the other ones. Auto smooth. All right, and that's it. We now have our edge pieces. So the last thing you would need to do if you wanted to raise these up and use them higher as railings or anything like that, you would need to build custom collision for your edge in, because it is a concave shape, but that's only if you wanted to use it as some kind of railing or something. But that's it. That's how you go through and you build edges. That's the last of the big modular pieces that we have. So go ahead and export these out and import them into Unreal.